Welcome to Duo Reads. Today we're embarking on a truly fascinating journey through a book that, despite being nearly a century old, continues to shape how we think about human interaction. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Its insights feel, well, as fresh and impactful today as they did way back then.
Absolutely. And our mission today is really to understand why. Why did this book become such a global phenomenon? Why do its core strategies for improving our interactions, whether in business, social settings, or even at home, why do they still resonate so deeply? We're going to try and distill those surprisingly potent principles for you, maybe looking beyond the surface to the fundamental human needs they address.
Yeah, and what's really remarkable, I think, is that this isn't just theory cooked up in like an academic ivory tower. Carnegie's work actually grew out of this two-year, $25,000 survey. Quite a bit of money back then. It was conducted by the University of Chicago and the United YMCA schools, and they set out to discover one thing. What do adults really want to study?
And the key finding was incredibly telling. Adults were most interested in health. Okay, that makes sense. But their second greatest interest, it was all about human connection. How to understand people, how to get along with them, how to make others like you, and crucially, how to effectively influence their thinking. This fundamental human longing for connection and understanding, that's precisely what Carnegie's book uniquely addresses.
It's not just theory, as you said. The book's practical, action-oriented approach came straight from what Carnegie actually called human relationships laboratories. Thousands of adults tested these principles in, well, real-world scenarios. Carnegie himself noted that these rules, and this is a quote, work like magic. Also, they led to genuine transformations for people, promotions, increased sales, even just smoother family dynamics. Real stuff. Fundamental techniques. The art of human connection. Okay, so let's unpack some of Carnegie's foundational techniques for handling people. The first one he lays out seems simple, but man, it's incredibly challenging for many. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Why is this so hard and why is it so crucial?
Well, it's hard because our natural impulse, often when faced with something we don't like, is to point out the fault, right? But Carnegie argues this is basically futile because people, by nature, almost never blame themselves. It's just human psychology. He gives examples like Tugun Crowley, the cop killer, or even Al Capone. They saw themselves as justified, maybe victims of circumstance. Criticism immediately puts people on the defensive. It wounds their pride, stirs up resentment. It just doesn't inspire change. It inspires resistance.
That's such a profound insight into, well, us. You see this play out even with big historical figures. Abraham Lincoln, for instance. He learned this lesson the hard way. Early in his life, he apparently had a habit of ridiculing people, writing these scathing letters that created lifelong enemies. Not great. Yet, by the time of the Civil War, despite, immense frustration with generals like Meade after Gettysburg, Lincoln had almost entirely abandoned direct criticism. He even wrote this furious letter to Meade, but famously never sent it.
Right. He understood it would only make Meade justify himself and probably impair his future usefulness. That unsent letter is such a powerful symbol, isn't it? It shows that real leadership and effective human interaction isn't always about being right. It's about being effective. Criticism almost always misses the mark because it assumes the other person lacks knowledge or good intentions, when usually they just have a different perspective, maybe different pressures. It's about recognizing that change rarely comes from shame. It comes from understanding.
Okay, so if criticism is out, what's the positive counterpoint? Carnegie's second core principle is give honest and sincere appreciation. How does that actually work in practice?
This is what Carnegie called the big secret. He talks about Charles Schwab, who earned $1 million a year, a huge sum then. And it wasn't primarily for his knowledge of steel, but for his, quote, ability to arouse enthusiasm among his people. His secret was simply finding what to commend, giving sincere, specific praise. And the key is sincere. This isn't cheap flattery, which is, insincere and easily seen through. It's about genuinely finding and acknowledging the other person's good points.
Yeah, that's a virtue we often neglect, I think. It applies everywhere, doesn't it? From praising a kid's effort in school, even if the grade isn't perfect, to acknowledging a salesperson's courtesy. There's a story Carnegie tells about Pamela Dunham, who was struggling with a janitor doing a terrible job. Criticism and ridicule had failed completely. But when she started praising him for specific improvements, like noticing when he polished the floors well, complimenting his thoroughness, his attitude and performance completely transformed. He started taking pride in his work, where before, criticism had only led to, well, resentment.
It's a remarkable testament to the power of genuine recognition. It taps into something deep.
Okay, now here's where we dive into something truly fundamental to human motivation. Carnegie's third principle in this section is to Arouse in the other person an eager want. This sounds a bit like sales talk, maybe, but it goes much deeper, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This principle taps into what the philosopher John Dewey identified as a core human urge, the desire to be important. And this isn't just vanity. It's a deep-seated need for significance, for feeling valued. It's what drove Lincoln to study law, Dickens to write novels. Carnegie even points out, maybe controversially, that it can lead some people to go insane in search of it, like that patient who imagined herself as Lady Smith with the new child every night, because real life hadn't given her that feeling.
Wow. It's mind-blowing how central that desire is. And Carnegie shows us practical ways to tap into it, like Stan Novak getting his son Tim excited about kindergarten. He didn't order him to go. Instead, he focused on all the fun things Tim wanted to do, their finger painting, making new friends. Instead of saying, you need to go, he framed it like, imagine all the cool stuff you'll get to do.
Exactly. And Carnegie did this himself when negotiating hotel rent for his classes. He didn't talk about his own needs or budget pressures, no. He laid out the advantages and disadvantages for the hotel manager. He made the manager see how agreeing to his terms benefited them. And this brings us right back to that Henry Ford quote, which is so powerful. If there is any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as from your own.
That's the core of it.
That's the essence of arousing an eager want. It's not about manipulation. It's about helping people see how their needs and desires align with yours. When you frame your request or idea in terms of their benefit, you unlock genuine cooperation. 2, building genuine connection. How to make people like you.
Okay, moving on. Carnegie shares some really powerful advice on how to become genuinely well-liked. And it starts with a simple, maybe profound idea: become genuinely interested in other people. Why is this so much more effective than, say, trying to be interesting yourself?
Well, the simple truth, which we often overlook, is that people are primarily interested in themselves. There was that study by the New York Telephone Company. It found I was the most used word in phone conversations. Tells you something, right? And Alfred Adler, the Viennese psychologist, he put it quite strongly. It is the individual who is not interested in his fellow men who has the greatest difficulties in life and provides the greatest injury to others. It's a powerful statement that kind of flips our usual approach on its head. Stop trying to impress people. Start trying to understand them.
And when you actually do that, the results can be incredible. Howard Thurston, the famous magician, apparently never stepped on stage without first telling himself, I love my audience. He fostered that genuine feeling. Theodore Roosevelt made a point of greeting even his servants by name, showing a real interest in them as people.
Right. And there's the story of C.M. Naffel Jr., the fuel salesman. He made a breakthrough with a big chain store executive, not by pushing his product harder, but by showing genuine, unfeigned interest in the executive's passion, which happened to be chain stores. By simply asking questions and listening intently, Navel forged a connection that eventually led to a big sale. It truly works.
Okay, the next way to connect is incredibly simple, yet maybe underestimated. Smile. What's the hidden power in something so, well, basic?
A sincere smile. It communicates without a single word. I like you. You make me happy. I'm glad to see you.
It's a powerful nonverbal message. It bypasses logical barriers and speaks directly to emotion. Carnegie tells the story of William B. Steinhardt, a New York stockbroker who decided to consciously smile more. It reportedly transformed his life, improved his marriage, his personal happiness, and, interestingly, his bottom line. He said, quote, smiles are bringing me dollars, many dollars, every day.
Wow. So an internal shift have real external results.
Exactly. It shows how powerful it can be.
It's amazing how such a small gesture can have such a huge impact. Even telephone companies apparently started these phone power programs. Employees were encouraged to smile while talking because it genuinely improves your voice tone, making you sound more approachable and friendly.
Makes sense. There's that old Chinese proverb, right? A man without a smiling face must not open a shop. There's wisdom in that.
Okay, next up, and this is something that can truly make someone feel seen. Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Oh, definitely. Think of Jim Farley, who managed Franklin D. Roosevelt's campaign back in 1932. He famously could recall something like 50,000 people by their first names. 50,000. This incredible ability was seen as a major factor in FDR's political success. It creates such a powerful sense of personal connection.
It really does.
And there's that really touching example Carnegie gives of Nicodemus Papadoulos, an immigrant. He apparently literally cried when someone finally took the effort to learn and use his full proper name, Nicodemus, instead of just calling him Nick.
Mm.
It speaks volumes about that deep human need for recognition, for individual identity.
That's the power right there. Even the big industrial giants understood this. Andrew Carnegie himself named his huge steel mill the Edgar Thomson Steel Works. Why? After the president of the Pennsylvania Railroad, purely to help secure his business.
Smart move. Remembering and using someone's name. It's a fundamental act of respect and recognition. It's critical in all areas of life, really.
Okay, our fourth principle for truly connecting with people: be a good listener, encourage others to talk about themselves. This seems counterintuitive sometimes, especially when we're trying to impress someone, but why is it so effective?
Well, Carnegie experienced this himself. He tells about attending a dinner party where he spoke very little. Instead, he just listened intently to a botanist for hours, asking questions, showing interest. Afterwards, the botanist declared Carnegie a most interesting conversationalist, even though Carnegie barely said a word.
That's brilliant.
It illustrates the profound flattery of rapt attention. As Jack Woodford put it, few human beings are proof against the implied flattery of rapt attention. We all crave to be heard, to be understood.
Absolutely. You think about someone like Sigmund Freud, whose intense listening style was part of his therapeutic method, making people feel uniquely heard. And Dr. Nicholas Murray Butler, the longtime president of Columbia University, he pointed out that those who only talk about themselves are, in his words, hopelessly uneducated, no matter how much formal knowledge they possess.
Ouch. But it's a powerful reminder, isn't it? What matters most to another person is their world, their concerns. Carnegie uses that stark example. A person's own toothache means more to them than a famine in China that kills 1 million people. Listen to what matters to them.
Okay, fifth point for making people like you: talk in terms of the other person's interests.
Right. This builds on the listening point. Once you understand what someone cares about, lean into it. Carnegie shares a story from William Lyon Phelps, who learned this from his aunt. She pointed out a lawyer who skillfully talked about boats with young Phelps simply because Phelps was interested in boats at the time. The lawyer won him over instantly.
Yeah, finding that common ground based on their passion. There's another example, Edward E. Harriman, who got a job by researching the business maverick R.J. Funkhauser. Instead of just talking about himself, Harriman discussed Funkhauser's own rise to riches, aligning with Funkhauser's interests and passions. It worked.
It shows you've done your homework and you genuinely care about their world.
And finally, the sixth way to make people like you instantly: make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. How does this tie back to that core desire we discussed?
It circles right back to that fundamental desire to be important. It's about validating their significance. Carnegie himself practiced this. He tells about complimenting a bored post office clerk on his hair, just a small thing. He found immense satisfaction in just radiating a little happiness, making that person feel noticed without seeking anything in return.
That's nice.
And there's that incredible story of the Connecticut attorney who's sincerely admired his wife's elderly aunt's treasured antiques and possessions. The aunt, who was probably starved for recognition and appreciation, was so moved she spontaneously gave him her cherished Packard car.
Wow, a whole car.
Yes, his genuine appreciation, Carnegie says, felt like a spring in the desert to her.
And it's not just for small gestures or personal relationships, right?
It's not at all. Think about George Eastman, the millionaire founder of Eastman Kodak. He apparently spent hours showing off his simple self-painted chairs and discussing his early struggles with a salesman. Eastman, despite all his wealth and fame, still longed to feel important, to share his personal story. The salesman genuinely listened, showed interest, made Eastman feel valued for who he was, not just what he'd built.
And the result.
Eastman ended up giving him a massive $90,000 order. When done sincerely, making others feel important can build incredible connection and trust. 3. Influencing thought. How to win people to your way of thinking.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit now, moving towards influence and leadership. Carnegie's first principle here is perhaps his most counterintuitive, especially for those of us who, maybe, enjoy good debate. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Why is avoiding an argument often the actual path to success?
Because arguments are almost always futile, basically. They make people feel inferior, they stir up resentment, even if you somehow win the point logically. Carnegie learned this himself. He tells a story about publicly correcting a speaker about a Shakespeare quote at a dinner. He won the point, but realized afterwards he just embarrassed the speaker and made everyone uncomfortable. He gained nothing.
Right, you win the battle, lose the war sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's Patrick J. O'Hare, a salesman, who completely transformed his career by learning this. He stopped arguing with customers. Instead, he learned to agree with them first, find common ground, disarm them, He realized arguing only made prospects dig their heels in more, maybe become more attached to his competitor's product out of spite. Carnegie's famous line is, "You can't win an argument, because if you lose it, you lose it. And if you win it, you lose it because you've made the other person feel inferior, wounded their pride."
Okay, that makes sense. Which leads smoothly to the next point. Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say, "You're wrong."
Yeah, this is crucial. Saying you're wrong is a direct challenge. It engages their ego, their self-esteem. As James Harvey Robinson explained, most of our opinions aren't based on logic anyway. They're based on protecting our existing beliefs, our pride. People don't like to change their minds because it feels like admitting fault.
So how do you disagree without saying you're wrong?
Well, Ben Franklin, who apparently was quite an inveterate arguer in his youth, learned this. He started using phrases like, "I conceive," or "it appears to me at present," or "if I am not mistaken." Instead of definitive challenging statements like "certainly" or "undoubtedly," it fosters agreement, or at least openness.
Softer language, basically.
Right. Less confrontational.
Okay, next. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Why is this act of humility so powerful for influence?
Because it completely disarms people, and it's unexpected. Carnegie tells that great story about encountering a park policeman because his little dog was running loose without a muzzle. Big offense back then, apparently. Instead of making excuses, Carnegie immediately jumped in first, admitting his guilt totally. "Officer, you've caught me red-handed. I'm guilty. I have no excuses."
And what happened?
The officer, expecting an argument, was totally disarmed. His tone changed completely. He became sympathetic, even started defending the dog, saying maybe it wasn't hurting anyone. He ended up just giving Carnegie a warning.
That's amazing.
And there's another one, Ferdinand E. Warren, the artist. He disarmed a critical art director who was about to reject his work. Warren immediately agreed with the criticism, admitted fault before the director could really lay into him, and offered to redo the whole thing. The result: the art director started defending him, praised his professionalism, and even took him to lunch. Humility can absolutely turn opponents into allies.
That's a great takeaway. Okay, the fourth principle for winning people to your way of thinking. Begin in a friendly way. How does this set the stage?
It's based on a simple truth. Woodrow Wilson talked about it. If you come at someone with your fist doubled, they'll double theirs faster. But if you approach with friendliness, invite discussion, say, "Let us sit down and take counsel together," you're much more likely to find common ground.
Makes sense. Like honey versus vinegar.
Precisely. John D. Rockefeller Jr. used this masterfully during a violent coal miners' strike. The workers literally wanted to hang him, but he went and spoke to them. Not defensively, but with warmth, respect, focusing on shared interests, calling them friends. He completely won them over.
Wow.
And F. Gale Connor, trying to get his car repaired under warranty, found success not by starting angry, but by appealing to the dealership owner's pride and his reputation for outstanding service. It just proves that old saying, doesn't it? A drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall. Gentleness and friendliness are stronger than fury and force.
Okay, fifth. Get the other person saying yes, yes immediately. What's the psychology behind this?
This is the Socratic method, basically. You start by emphasizing the things you agree on. Once a person says no, all their pride kicks in to remain consistent. It's hard to reverse that. But if you get them saying yes from the outset, you create a positive momentum, an affirmative direction that makes it much easier for them to agree with your ultimate point.
Can you give an example?
Sure. There's the bank teller who wanted a new customer to fill out a standard information form the customer initially refused to complete. Instead of arguing, the teller got the customer saying yes to things like, "Isn't it standard for banks to have this info? And wouldn't this info be helpful if something happened to you?" Eventually, the customer willingly filled out the form. Or Joseph Allison, the Westinghouse salesman who won a huge $35,000 order from a competitor's client by initially focusing only on points of agreement about electrical systems. He got the yes-yes momentum going.
Clever. Okay, sixth principle for cooperation. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. Why is listening more effective than talking when trying to persuade?
Because people are more interested in their own problems and experiences than yours. Letting them talk allows them to feel heard and understood. It also gives you valuable information about their perspective and needs. Charles T. Cubelis used this in a job interview. He prompted the company founder to reminisce about his early struggles in the company's history. Cubelis listened intently.
And he got the job.
He did. The founder felt heard and connected with Cubelis. There's that quote from La Rochefoucauld: "If you want enemies, excel your friends. But if you want friends, let your friends excel you." Letting others talk, letting them feel important, builds connection.
That leads perfectly into the seventh principle. Let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers. How does this dramatically increase buy-in?
It taps into ownership. People have far more faith in ideas they feel they've discovered or originated themselves. Adolf Seltz, the sales manager, motivated a discouraged team not by ordering them, but by asking them what they expected from him and what he had a right to expect from them. The plan that emerged felt like their plan.
So they were invested.
Exactly.
Right.
Eugene Wesson, selling designs, found success by showing clients unfinished sketches and asking for their input, their ideas on how to complete them. The clients felt like they were co-creating the final design.
Smart.
And there's the father who wanted the family to vacation out east. Instead of pushing it, he subtly planted the idea with his history-loving daughter. He highlighted historical sites, let her research them, and eventually she suggested the trip herself, feeling it was her brilliant idea. When it's their idea, they champion it.
Okay, revisiting a powerful principle we touched on earlier. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Why is this so critical for influence?
Because understanding why someone thinks or feels a certain way is the key to finding common ground or addressing their real concerns. It's that empathy piece again. Henry Ford stressed this constantly. Remember Elizabeth Novak with the late car payment? She faced an angry debt collector. Instead of arguing or making excuses, she sympathized with his problems, listened to his frustrations about his difficult job.
And he gave her more time.
Yes, without her even asking directly. Because she honestly tried to see his perspective, his humanity. It changed the dynamic completely.
It's about stepping into their shoes, really understanding their world.
Exactly, like the father getting his underweight son to eat by appealing not to health, but to the boy's desire to get strong enough to beat a bully who was picking on him. He saw the boy's motivation.
Or the other father encouraging his daughter to eat breakfast by letting her make the cereal herself, satisfying her desire for self-expression. It's about their angle. Ninth, be sympathetic with the other person's ideas and desires. How is this different from just seeing their point of view?
Seeing their point of view is understanding. Sympathy is about acknowledging and validating their feelings about it, even if you don't fully agree. Carnegie says there's a universal human craving for sympathy. People even crave it for their misfortunes, for self-pity. Acknowledging that feeling can be incredibly disarming.
Like validating their frustration, even if you think it's misplaced.
Precisely. Saul Hurak, the famous impresario, managed the temperamental opera singer Fyodor Chaliapin this way. When Chaliapin refused to sing because he felt slighted, Hurak didn't argue about the contract. He offered total sympathy. Of course you feel terrible, you're sensitive. Anyone would be upset. Just offering sympathy and more sympathy was often enough to calm the singer down and get him on stage.
Fascinating. 10th principle, appeal to the nobler motives. What does Carnegie mean by that?
He means appealing to people's higher values, their sense of fairness, honesty, justice, their desire to do the right thing. Most people want to see themselves as honorable. Lord Northcliffe, the British press baron, wanted a newspaper to stop using a picture of him he disliked. Instead of ordering them, he wrote a letter appealing to their respect for his mother, saying she didn't like the picture. They removed it immediately.
Ah, clever.
And John D. Rockefeller Jr., wanting photographers to leave his children alone, didn't threaten lawsuits. He appealed to their sense of decency as fathers themselves, asking them not to harm innocent kids. It worked.
So assume the best in people.
And appeal to it, yes.
11th, dramatize your ideas. Why is this important in getting attention and making a point?
Because we live in an age of drama. Just stating a truth often isn't enough. You need to make it vivid, engaging, memorable. Jim Yeamans, selling cash registers, wanted to show a grocer how much money he was losing through small errors. So he literally threw a handful of pennies on the floor. That visual drama got the grocer's attention far more than just quoting statistics.
Make it real.
Exactly. And Maxim Heinemann, selling cold cream, dumped 32 jars of competing products on a potential client's desk to dramatically demonstrate the saturated market his new product could cut through. Show, don't just tell.
Okay. And the final principle for influencing people. Throw down a challenge. This seems a bit risky, but how does it ignite motivation?
It taps into that intrinsic human desire to excel, to compete, to prove oneself. It's not about money, it's about the game, the chance to win. Charles Schwab famously motivated his mill managers to increase production. How? He simply wrote the current shift's output number in chalk on the factory floor. The night shift saw it, took it as a challenge, and beat it. The day shift saw the new number and beat that.
Just a number on the floor.
Yes. It ignited their competitive spirit, their desire to excel. Theodore Roosevelt was spurred to stay in the tough New York governorship race when opponents challenged his courage. Louis E. Laws accepted the incredibly challenging job of warden at Sing Sing prison, not primarily for the pay, but because it appealed to his desire for a really big, important job, a real challenge.
So it's about tapping into that deeper drive for achievement.
Exactly. The desire for the work itself, the chance to prove one's worth. Outro. What really stands out across all of Carnegie's work, I think, is that these principles, they're not about manipulation, not when used correctly. They're about understanding human nature on a really deep level, respecting individual desires, and fostering genuine connection and cooperation. It's really about enabling others to achieve their goals, which often, in turn, helps you achieve yours in a much more authentic and sustainable way.
Yeah, it's been a really powerful discussion today, hasn't it? From simply avoiding criticism all the way to inspiring action through challenge. These aren't just abstract concepts, they are practical skills. And like any skill, like a muscle, they require consistent practice. Carnegie himself advised reviewing these principles regularly, maybe monthly, and consciously applying them at every opportunity until they become habitual.
Make them second nature.
Exactly. He truly believed this could transform lives, helping us tap into those dormant and unused assets that Professor William James talked about, the potential that lies within all of us.
So maybe a good place to leave it for you, the listener, is with a question for reflection. As you think about this discussion to human relations, what's maybe one principle from today's conversation that you could intentionally practice this week? Just one thing to try out and see if you can witness some of that magic in your own interactions.